We're on a high-speed boat. We throw the anchor on the ocean. Freaking thing is just not moving. Well, we don't need more throttle. We don't need more fuel. We don't need more. Come on, look, everybody lean forward more. We need to go, stop, time out. Either bring the anchor up or cut that thing. Elon Musk would not be a better Elon Musk if he became a better father or a better husband. He is not immortal. Belief drive behavior, behavior drive results. Most people focus on content and process, which is right here. The idea is to have the thinking man ask the or woman ask the questions and then just go for a nap, go for a walk, go read a book, zone out, and then deliver it to the thinking brain going, here's the answer. And they go, the eureka moment. The comfort of your life is not the cause of the comfort. You have to go back to, okay, what's causing that comfort to be comfortable?
Welcome to the Full Stack Podcast. I'm Mike Bledsoe. The world is changing faster than ever. The systems are collapsing, the rules are being rewritten, and certainty is disappearing. The question isn't how do we survive it? It's who do we become through it? This is your field guide for living the full stack life. Integrated, adaptive, and sovereign by design. Join the movement and gain free access to the Full Stack School community at bledsoe.life. This isn't the end of an era. It's the rise of a new kind of individual. You're not alone. You're early. Stay stacked. If this episode resonates, like the video, subscribe, and share it with a friend.
The most important pieces are conversations, right? And so I know we got to, most people in podcasts put on great shows, and that's what they are. They're fantastic shows, and they help a lot of people, and they're impactful and useful, and they're showmen. And they're really great at it. I suck at that. What I'm really great at is just great conversations, great content, and change. So to your thing about the holistic approach to the nervous system, have you looked at somatic therapy?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I've been deep into somatics.
Okay.
I've spent time in the jungle.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Have you done any PRI?
PRI, yes.
Okay,
Very
cool.
familiar.
All right.
I have some friends that are certified in that, and they've used that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You looked at the fascia, obviously, because it's a big thing.
Fascia was actually my first stop.
Interesting. And have you looked at things like Egoscue as well?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, they're all sort of interrelated. I find it used to be in the old days, right? Doctors, I'm 55, right? So back when I was a teenager, a doctor was a doctor in the community, and he was a holistic doctor, right? It's kind of like the movie with Michael J. Fox, Doc Hollywood. There's a scene where this kid has a descent in the tummy, and then he's like, Michael J. Fox is freaking that he's having some kind of appendicitis, and the old doc comes in, gives him a Coke, and goes, he has gastritis or whatever. He goes, move on. And the kid burps and he feels better, right? So it's in between, and I, as a type 1 diabetic that has 2 other autoimmune disorders, Hashimoto's and Graves', by the way, diagnosed at 50, mind you. I've been through every medical doctor you can imagine, every one of them. And it's interesting because they look at the thing just myopically. They look at, your heart's great. Well, then why this? I don't know. I'm just a hard guy. Like I talked about a heart, I have pretty high testosterone naturally at 1,033. And my sex binding globule hormone varies depending upon what I eat and exercise or not. And I want to keep it in the lower normal range so it's more free testosterone. So I had a cardiologist that, my regular annual physical, thank God everything's okay. And I asked him about that, and he goes, I don't know. I said, how do you not know, dude? How do you not know? When I was diagnosed with Graves' disease, I don't have it anymore, which is weird, but I had heart palpitations. Cardiologist said, it's just PVCs. We don't know. My regular doctor said, we don't know. And I'm like, dude, how do you not and then when I went to my endocrinologist, they're like, oh, by the way, you have, because they did a blood work, you have Graves' disease and Hashimoto's. I was like, oh, what are symptoms of Graves' disease? Well, heart skip beats. Like, how does a cardiologist not know? If you get dyslipidemia, you have thyroid issues. We can look at the holistic of the body and look at the cause and the effect. And the more myopic we get, the more specialized we get, the worse we become at treating not just the physical body, but also the mind. So NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, Ericksonian hypnotherapy, you name it, I've done it, I've looked at it, Havening, TFT, EFT, and all of it has a place. If PRI, Egoscue, somatic therapy, right? I've done it all only because I'm interested in results. I really don't care about the methodology. I want to know what works, and what works for Ted or Marx or Mike may not necessarily work for everybody. So it's very tough to pigeonhole individuals, but you can talk about concepts and strategies and metaphors. And, we can look at the world at a meta model view from up, down. And then as we kind of detail down, we can pick and choose different arrows depending upon what the target really is. So it seems to me that what you guys are looking for is, hey, look, and Mike, I don't necessarily agree that if you improve one aspect, all else goes along the way. In my experience, right now, mind you, I've got 15, almost 20 years of coaching high net worth individuals. In my experience, it isn't always the case. Elon Musk would not be better Elon Musk if he became a better father or a better husband. It just, his 20% spike, as Richard Koch would say, is so out of whack, so high, that he's going to get a significantly greater return on his energy of time and focus if he just pushes that spike even further than if he tries to elevate the rest.
Mm-hmm.
But he is not immortal, right? Elon Musk is not a mere regular individual.
Yeah, he's not the business owner that that we're talking. Like most business owners don't care to have what he has. They want to have they want to be able to check all the boxes, and that's actually possible these days.
It's not only possible, it's desirable in most situations.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we can't put a universal, all individuals, because that way we're going to alienate those who think different. When they sort the message, the sort of meta program, if you would, to bring in NLP, those that see things different, meaning their antagonistic responses. Blue, no, it's not blue, right? You know those people. They say the opposite or whatever. That's just how they learn. So if we say all people need to have this, because no, I don't, I'm one of those that do. But if we say in some cases not the case, they can identify and go, oh, maybe I'm one of those, right? So we want to be inclusive, not politically correct because I'm not, be inclusive of the way the brain works so they can get the message that you want to give them so that they go, okay, well, I can fall in this category here. So, in our experience, doubling income, doubling time off, you talked about tactics and how-tos, is really a metaphor, which is practically applicable, but it's also a metaphor of, hey, look, how do we increase the quality and the value of your life so that everything around you gets better? What I have discovered in, my years of coaching, consulting, and my own entrepreneurial journey is nothing motivates more than progress. If you get somebody in one of your old gyms and the person shows up day in and day out and they're grinding, but they're seeing no progress, that motivation scale is going to begin to lower down. But if we can give them a little bit of progress so they see a little bit of growth, they're hooked for life, whether it's diet, exercise, you know, attitude, mindset, income. Even if you have a bit of a up and then a bit of a dip, your brain remembers that, right? And it has that typical growth going forward. So I think it's smart to look at it the way you look at it in terms of the nervous system as a metaphor for, yes, the nervous system, but really, how are you relating to the world outside of you? The reality is this, right? This is reality. What's outside? How are you engaging with reality? And the better we can get you to engage with reality in all facets of your life, whether it be spiritually, mentally, physically, whatever you want, monetarily, the better you can engage with reality, the better decision making you can have and the better results you can get. And it does start with how you perceive things. You brought NLP, right? Distort, generalize, delete information that comes into your brain, and then you give it a certain meaning, and then that meaning is in your neurology, and the neurology comes out with certain effective behavior. And it's not that NLP invented that. They simply were able to put a vernacular on the way the human mind works. Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, Jesus, Gandhi, you name all these guys out there. They all said the same thing, just in a different language in terms of who their audience was. So is it safe to say that what you're looking for is, hey, look, we want to help you understand two facets in your podcast. One is the reality is going to give you feedback, information that's going to be there whether or not you pay attention to it. How you pay attention to that information and how you then respond, not react, because we react badly, we respond well. How you respond, right? That Skinner moment between, cause and effect, right? Or stimulus response, right? How you respond is truly going to determine the results that you get. Whether your happiness goes up or down, your income goes up or down, your, efficacy at work, your efficiency, your relationships, it all is going to be relationship dependent upon how you relate to the outside world. We can't change the outside world too much. We can change the environment. You can move from Florida to Texas, Texas to Florida. But really what stays the same is you. As Jim Rohn said, wherever you go, there you are. So it's, hey, look, we want to give you tools, not just how-tos and tactics, but understanding. Because the minute you understand something, you have already shifted the way you see it. You can't help but do that. If I teach you something, an embedded command, as an example, to use vernacular language patterns, or phonetic ambiguity, or a different language, the minute you're exposed to that, you cannot help but understand it better. Even if you do nothing with it, it's changed your mindset. This is kind of why I started asking you questions at the beginning, because you gave me some clues about the way your brain processes information.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking up left as remembrance, right? Feature. So you're very visually oriented in terms of output. But your kinesthetic is out of conscious, which means you don't pay attention to your feelings. So that's not a bad thing or a good thing. It's just a strategy thing. So
Mm-hmm.
in order to have more choices, you got to bring input, and because there's three systems: input, output, and out of conscious system. Those that have get into problems have an out of conscious system. A guy goes like this. Give an example. Since you brought up NLP, I assume you're aware of it. You're familiar, right? And by Bandler and Grinder having a meet for the first time on the 27th together, they haven't seen each other for decades, as a 50th anniversary of the creation of NLP. Hey man, you brought it up, not me. So imagine this, right? You go to a buddy of yours. He seems to be a bit down. This is what I experience with my clients on a regular basis, right? So I'll give you a real life example. Guy comes in, he goes, I don't know, man, something's really bothering me. And you go, well, what is it? He goes, I don't know. And you go, and you have this discussion, like, what is it? And you try to figure it out. But for the trained individual to understand what you would call the neurology or the system, he's making a picture of something. It's just not consciously aware to him. But the minute you make that picture consciously aware, he's going to go, oh, shoot, oh, sugar. And his brain will immediately create a different resolution of patterns that gives him a different outlook, literally, and pun intended, right? Because vision, outlook. He had the visual out of conscious. People who are overweight tend to have, as an example, kinesthetic out of conscious. They don't know when they're full, so they keep eating, right? And we can go down the path of line. So I think it's important to understand from your perspective of your audience is, hey, we need to help you figure out how you're relating to the outside world. When you get good at that, and there's, we need the body, the mind, the spirit, the energy, and all this stuff, right? I mean, it could be diet, it could be fascia, it could be so, in fact, it probably is all the things, right? The minute we improve upon that, and then your response improves, you now are the master and commander of your life to the every capacity of vehicle you're on. I'll never be Elon Musk. I don't have, A, the desire, and B, I don't have the means in terms of the vehicle, right? So you got to take into consideration, I didn't pick something that, is worth $3 trillion or whatever the case may be, nor did I want to. But if we help them understand that piece, then relating with this gives them better tools to perform at their highest optimal level. Or do you disagree?
That sounds spot on. Yeah, I mean,
So,
we go back to Aristotle, and he talks about, how do we get in greater contact with reality? And that's what being human is if you're out of contact with reality, your ability to navigate is going to be highly diminished. And so most people, including myself, always working towards how do I get in greater contact with reality, and with what's going on in my internal state, and then what's going on and how I'm perceiving, can I match my perception with what's actually happening? And if I can do that, now I can be much more effective. And so that's basically what I'm hearing.
yeah, you could be, Mike, you could definitely be significantly more effective in dealing with reality because you're able to morph reality and change it because you can see for what it actually is. Perfect example is sports, right? So, I don't know much about baseball, football, golf, but I know martial arts. That's kind of where my sort of my experience is in. If I'm fighting somebody and I pretend that they're not there, or I don't see the punch or the kick or the grappling move coming because I refuse to see it, I'm going to lose. I'm going to be in for a world of pain.
Mm-hmm.
Combat, reality is found in combat, or truth is found in combat, right? Truth is found in combat because combat shows you reality. Now, it could be business combat, it could be weightlifting combat. Combat's just a metaphor for you engaging with the outside world, either with an opponent or, a marketplace or your own, issues, you're underweight, overweight, whatever. That's the opponent, if you would. And the minute you start engaging in that, there is a combat. We live in I don't know, maybe an acre lot, whatever. And, my wife likes to garden. I could care less. Like, I don't let the grass grow brown. It makes no difference to me, but she loves it. So we spend, kind of money with the gardening and stuff. And the one thing I noticed is weeds are automatic, right? Weeds always show up. And she's weed. I'm like, why are you weeding? She goes, if I don't weed, they take over the garden. They take over the flowers and whatever. So there is always this battle. And, people don't like to use the word battle because they want to be all, hum. But there is a battle between, growth and lack of growth, between good and evil, between whatever metaphor works for you. And we as human beings benefit and derive pleasure from getting those battles. But Jim Rohn had a saying that he said, doing less than you possibly can is what most messes with the mind. And you see that in today's world. You see
Can
these.
you say that again? Doing less than.
Yeah.
So he said he was once asked by a group of psychologists, "Hey, Mr. Rohn, today's his birthday, by the way, even though he's dead." They said, "Hey, what do you think most?" Some psychologist asked him, "What do you think most messes with the mind?" And he says, "I'll tell you what I think: doing less than you possibly can." So when you do less than you possibly can, it most messes with your mind. Now, that is not an endorsement for working like Elon Musk all the hours that God sent you. It is an endorsement to do your best. It doesn't mean better than everybody. It doesn't mean that you should be number one on everything you do. It just means your best. So, I can probably do 100 push-ups, but maybe you guys can do 200 push-ups. Well, comparatively speaking, I suck compared to you guys, but it's my absolute best. Therefore, I feel good about myself. Now, maybe I'll get to 101, 102 if I keep trying. So doing your best is giving the full effort and focus of what you're doing. That eliminates, having kids in their 20s, that eliminates 90% of the anxiety, 90% of your mental issues, 90% of your problems. The issue becomes, if we look at a bell-shaped curve like this, the sweet spot's right in the middle. So they assume, well, if doing my best means I got to do work, then more work equals better. But you hit that point of diminishing return. So we have to temper that with saying it's the intensity and the focus. But that also means if you're going to take a nap, take the best flipping nap you can take. If you're going to watch TV at your best. It is not an endorsement for working hard. In fact, all the guys and gals, but primarily guys that I know or that I've coached that are very high achievers, they don't work all the hours that God sent. In fact, they work less than the average individual. But they have a knack, either intuitively or through programming, to use your vernacular earlier, Mike, to do their best at whatever it is they're doing. And that brings them a higher state of awareness to reality. It calms down the nervous system of fight or flight to feed, fornicate, feed, fornicate, and whatever it was 5 of them to kind of chill out, basically. Oh, feed, fornicate, fight, flight. Now I got to figure fight, flight, feed, fornicate, and freeze. So fight, flight, or freeze goes away, feed, and fornicate come in. And now when the conscious mind comes down and relaxes, the subconscious mind, or what we call the archiving brain, can say, oh, remember that problem you thought about the other day? Well, here's a solution. Boom. And now, even to quote Ray Dalio, who is not unique in this, it's not about putting more hours in, it's about getting more from the minute. Productivity is implied upon how do we use the same amount of time but get more value from it. You've seen it throughout history, right? Agriculture with the ox versus the individual pulling, then machines, and then now AI. So it's, if we're going to put this much time in, how do we either minimize the time or keep the time the same, but increase productivity to a higher level? You want to get more from less. It's sort of the 80-20 principle. Well, to do that, we have to be counterintuitive for a neurology to work. The brain has 3 aspects to it. One, it's got the caveman, right? Or cavewoman, right? They're the ones that seek and destroy. They're let's get up and go. If somebody comes into your house, you don't want Socrates to think. You want the caveman to go grab the shotgun and shoot him with a knife. You need urgency. If a meteor strikes and you got to run, you got to run. The caveman is there to shut down the thinking brain, shut down the emotional brain, and get into pure action for survival. And he or she has a place, a very well-coveted place. You got the second part of the brain, which is the thinking brain, Rodin. And that's the logical brain. Asks questions. How do I make more money? How do I have more value? How do I love my wife or husband more? How do I better raise my kids? It's always thinking how to. It asks the questions. Then the librarian, or the archiving brain, it's always active. The thinking brain and the Neanderthal brain, the caveman, they can't live at the same time. Cavemen must be sleeping for the thinking brain to work, and vice versa, right? They don't work. When you see these people on TV, and they go nuts, that's just all caveman brain. There's no thinking going on right there. Zero to nada, right? Politically, whatever side you want, you pick the image. That's all just Neanderthal brain, reptilian brain, fear. Anger, that's how it's showing up. No thinking brain. So they can't operate together. But the live brain or the archiving brain is always on. However, when either of these two are on, its job of archiving books and putting files away and retrieving files, just like a librarian would, is diminished. It does it, but not so well. To be optimal in the neurology of our being, to achieve more with less and to have a better life and as a husband, wife, father, son, whatever, we need to be able to utilize those three parts appropriately. In fact, John Sarno wrote a book on healing back pain that Howard Stern read, for example, though I'm not a big fan anymore. And they cured him of his back pain because John Sarno said, hey, man, it's just all stress. Like you're holding stress in your back, right? And there's all somatic therapy. There's a lot of modalities that basically say, hey, that's nonsense because you can say your posture is like this and you have pain, but John has the same posture as you do. He doesn't have pain, so we know it's not the posture. It's neurology. It's what tells the pain to be or not to be. So if we have pain or we have some discomfort, it's our brain telling us, hey, you got to deal with this one way or the other. It's either A, you've got this guy, the caveman, all the time, or he's dead and you got the thinking guy all the time. The idea is to have the thinking man ask the or woman ask the questions. Hey, how do I do this? And then just go for a nap, go for a walk, go read a book, zone out, go to sleep. Then the archiving brain can take that question, go to the repertoire in the back of your mind, all the books you've read, experiences you've had, ether, you name it, put them together and then deliver it to the thinking brain going, here's the answer. And they go, the eureka moment Archimedes had. Oh, I've got it. Now the thinking brain thinks it did it. No. The librarian did it, not the thinking brain. So when we talk about being at your best and doing your best, most mess with the mind, it's this lack of progress, not this idea that we must force our way through life. In fact, if it requires force versus effort, you're on the wrong path. Effort is good, force is bad, right? Force, for somebody who lifts weights, force is what gives you injury. I got to force my way through this weightlifting. You're going to get injured. Effort is what grows the muscle. Not pain, by the way, as we know physiologically. Effort grows the muscle. The brain is no different. Also, you don't lift weights 12 hours a day. You're a moron. The greatest of the greatest, an hour to two max. Some say 4 days a week. Some say 6 days a week. What did they covet? Nutrition, rest. Aside from they coveted nutrition and rest. The natural bodybuilders, some are more gifted than others. Right? I mean, I'll never be, huge. But they covet food and rest. Well, why is the brain any different? Isn't neurology one and the same between the mind and the body and the spirit? Shouldn't we put effort into something as best as we can, do our absolute best, and then let the chips fall where they may, let God do the rest, and then sit back and then come at it the next day? So when we double people's income, double time off, a lot of it is counterintuitive. We have to back away the activity that they have so that they see themselves at their best. They're redlining. They're burning the candle both ends, and you're going to destroy the engine this way. We have to switch gears and bring them back to a nice steady. No airplane takes off and stays at the same speed once it's at 35,000 feet. It has to back up the throttle. So yes, there is a time when you have to push hard at the beginning of an entrepreneurial venture, or when you're first lifting weights, or you're in the courting zone with your wife. Yes, there are times that we push that throttle. But most of the time, it's counterintuitive because it burns out the neurology. What we've seen here recently, we're dealing with high net worth individuals, right? These guys, they're generally over $1 billion in net worth. Not all, but most of them. They have to be able to afford me, right? I have a lot of value, so they have to pay my fee and they have to be able to afford me. And so we're dealing with people that have already achieved some level of success. And their mindset is very different than those people here. It's easier to move the needle here than it is to move the needle here. But what we're seeing here more endemic now is we're seeing financial troubles, by the way, which is surprising, but not really. And we're seeing that we have to pull back more than push forward. And pull back means not just doing less, but pull back the knob of thinking effort equals result or cause equals effect. Go ahead, Ted.
If I may, how do you sell that, right? Because the throttle, the push is what gets them to that altitude. And for a lot of folks, what they do that gets them to a certain area, it's hard to rewire that thinking. So how do you sell that, hey, throttling back to maintain or push forward?
I don't sell it. I covertly mess with their brains so they can desire that they want. because it's, the truth is when I first meet, so clients come to me via referrals, right? David goes, hey, you got to talk to Marx. He's my guy, and he'll help you with whatever you got, right? And usually they come out of two things: diet issues, believe it or not. That's like you said, health, or income stress, right? It's always it's rarely I'm crushing it. I need you, Marx. It's like, hey, I'm fat or I'm sick, and yeah, I want to make more money too. Or hey, man, I'm stressed out, or my mind is not in the right place, or my business is failing, and I need some coaching. So I tell them what to expect, but I cheat a little bit. Somebody called me the other day the Wealthiest Cheat Code, and I'd ask my kids, what does that mean? Like, what is that? I don't. And he goes, "Oh no, Dad, it's a cheat code. Is a video because a cheat code is a video game. You can do a higher level." I said, "Okay, I like that." But first, I like cheat. I don't like the word cheat. And so you cannot logicize. These guys are smart. You can't say you're doing it wrong. You do it by asking questions and by listening. And we look at the way their neurology is already built on something. So I'll bring up an example. So I'll give an example. So how often do you lift weights right now, Ted? Because I know you're buff. I mean, you're a good-looking guy. I know you're at the gym. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. I actually started running more, but let's say 4 to 5 times a week.
Okay. And by the way, out of curiosity, why did you start running?
Training for a high rocks race, which is a physical, like functional fitness race, and it's 80% running. And I have the strength. I don't have the endurance, but I've embraced the identity of a runner now.
All right. And so what made you want to do that race or that competition?
I started Muay Thai, saw the benefits that gave me, and wanted to know more of what my body was capable of, and not just wanting to be strong, but wanted to be the most effective all around. I wanted to go muscles, not just show muscle.
And how often have you changed your track on becoming physically fit and or better?
I mean, I had a system that worked for a very long time. It actually wasn't until maybe 2 years ago where I was like, all right, let me switch this up. I was getting a little older. I had a baby. Time constraints increased. So I had to bring a different approach if I wanted to stay active.
So how did you know it wasn't working?
It was more so looking at what was ahead of me. Having a baby, I knew I couldn't spend the hour and a half to 2 hours in the gym, lifting weights, doing my same routine that I had years. Now there's times I have to get in and out in 45 minutes or less. So I knew that approach would have to change if I wanted to keep health a priority.
So if you find out that either circumstances change again, or if the environment becomes different, or you don't get the results that you want, are you willing to change that again, or are you going to stay in the same path?
Oh yeah, I'll change it again. I want to do what works.
Okay. And how do you know if something in business is or isn't working?
Results, progress. So
Okay.
what you mentioned before, KPIs.
Yeah, exactly. Although I like key metrics better than KPIs. Are there areas in your business where you think that a change in approach would be better for you?
There are, yes.
Okay. But do you have the courage to make those changes?
See, that's a deeper question now. Working on it.
So the answer is no?
Currently, no. If I'm being honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So then the thing is, you can't make the changes, so don't even bother. Why kid yourself, right? Why create a cognitive dissonance that's going to make you unhappy? When I mean, I did 3 things there, so I kind of cheated a bit. But when you look at the individuals that we bring on as clients, as an example, I give them a 64-page, I think it's 64 pages, intake form, and I cheat. Another way to cheat is I ask them, their values are, but then I ask them to tell me a story. And I think their values, and I throw away what they said their values are. I look at the story based on them asking them, and I know what their values really are. Because, Emerson said, what you do speaks so loudly, I cannot hear what you say. So what I'm looking for in your scenario was the resources that you have to make changes, the motivation behind that, the strategy inside your brain of how that works. And then I tested that against the business component, and it failed, meaning you're not doing it because you're not applying the same strategies to your business. So now, if you're a client, I'll make that fit, right? I'll make that strategy fit because you already have the resources inside your brain to make that happen. But you're not getting the results because you're implying 2 different strategies. You're putting one strategy for health and fitness here and one for finances here. Totally cool. Most people do that. But one's working for you, and it will work because it has different strategies, and one isn't working. It won't work for you because it's just not working. So we can, then my job becomes to do this, get rid of that, duplicate this one and install that in here. And then we test it to see if it works or doesn't work. That's not a hard process to do. But I appeal to your ego I appealed to your pride, and I challenged you to find out, does he have it within him, right? Is he a physical warrior and a mental weakness guy, or is he a physical warrior and a mental warrior? Does he have the both? And it's not a judgment in terms of like good and bad. It's, is he a total wuss over here and, a warrior here? And, if that's the case, why is he a wuss? Let's get rid of that and add the warrior. The biggest thing that will change somebody's mindset, to go back to Mike's component earlier about the neurology and the whole Quan, as Jerry Maguire movie, Cuba Gooding Jr. would say, is really eliminating the blocks people have. So people try to accentuate the positive and, get motivated, Ted, come on, Mike, we can do it, lift that weight, blah, blah, blah. And it works unless you have an anchor tying you back to something. So you look at Mike, not to analyze him, but we found that he had at least a half a dozen issues already that have held him back that he's tried to work on and break those chains, right? That's why he takes a break and moves over here. He notices some drag and says, this doesn't feel good. I got to do something different. Something's holding me back. The metaphor would be we're in a high-speed boat. We throw the anchor on the ocean. It's tied to a rock, and now we hit it. We're making all these noise, and the engines and fumes are coming out, and smoke's coming out, and you see all this backwater, and the friggin' thing is just not moving. Well, we don't need more throttle. We don't need more fuel. We don't need more. Come on, look, everybody, lean forward more. We need to go stop, time out. Either bring the anchor up or cut that thing. And the minute you do that, even a little bit of effort goes forward pretty quickly. So a lot of identifying people's mindset is to unhook the trigger that causes the metaphor that runs in their brain to be inefficient and not necessarily effective. So I'll give an example. Let's say, you know what a phobia is? Anybody ever have a phobia?
Yeah.
It's an uncontrollable fear. If you don't have it, I've never had it, thank God, but you've seen it.
I've never had it. I've just, witnessed it.
They're hilarious. Yeah, me too. They're hilarious. I've had panic attacks, right? Those are always fun. So you've seen them, and people have fears, right? My wife has, don't know why, a fear of crickets, which I find hilarious. She's okay as outside. The minute they're inside the house, it's honey, go get them. Like one time I woke up, we first got married. Actually, bought our first house. And I woke up, like Saturday, like at 10 in the morning, and there are these bowls on the grass throughout the house. And I was like, what the frick is that? She goes, don't open them. There's the little crickets that she, put a little bowl on top. She's afraid of crickets. So afraid of crickets and also afraid of mice, and she's like, I don't want to be afraid of mice. I was like, oh, you're going to be afraid of mice because that's funny for me. So when you look at a fear, right? So let's say what happens is a little girl is with grandma and she's walking down the street and grandma freaks out because there's a snake over there. It's a little garter snake, harmless. She freaks out. She grabs the granddaughter, goes, snake, pulls the granddaughter out. She freaks out. High emotional intensity, right? Sees the snake. Oh, crap. Now, if it's an Emily, event, meaning, landscape, and sense of inescapability, a trauma gets encoded in the amygdala, right? It's Emily. Event, meaning, landscape, and sense of inescapability. Those four things. If one is not present, it's not a trauma. If all four are present, it gets encoded in the amygdala as traumatic experience. Remember, that really bad, really fearful, act that way. But at the same time, a truck was driving by and there was a lady with a red dress. Now, the brain starts looking at the surroundings, and as time goes on, they begin to generalize. Trucks are bad. Red dresses are bad. Snakes really bad. Grandma's worse. And the brain begins to generalize. And so you get more and more and more and more fear because it's encoded in the amygdala, reptilian brain, that caveman brain. We can't do anything, but we can talk about it. We can do whatever you want to do. Now, somatic therapy will work. If you get the body to release it, it will generally, as long as you identify it, generally it will work. If not, we got to add pseudochemicals, meaning we have to bring up that event. We have to create calcium glutamate by alpha waves in the brain to depotentiate that so that when the trigger shows up, that button no longer is wired to the response. And life is kind of like that. There's a lot of things that create certain emotional responses from us, certain triggers, and our job is to just cut that wire. Boop. When you cut that wire and you press that button, it no longer activates. That light won't work anymore. Doing that has a greater effect, a greater impact on the brain and the body and the achievement and the happiness of the individual than anything else I've ever done in my entire life or thought of. We can talk about, Parthenon principle, 80-20 principle, Hawthorne effect. We can talk about all those things. But if you've got anchors or negative connotations attached, it won't matter. That's what Mike is like, hey man, I don't want to talk about how to necessarily, because he understands based on the neurology, there are bigger things we have to deal with for those things to actually work.
I find most people already have all the information. I've worked with clients and they're like, all right, I already listened to, they're running their own business. I listened to everything and I read every book that Alex Hormozy put out,
Right.
who's like the most brilliant marketer on the planet, in my
Amazing.
opinion.
Amazing.
And he's putting out all this information, so much of it for free. How many people actually can execute on it? It's like
Less
you
than
have
1%.
all the answers, I promise. Like if you've been on YouTube for a couple of years, you've been looking around, and I tell people like, what do you do for personal development? Like, well, I read books and listen to podcasts. And I go, well, you really haven't, because you actually gotta do something. You gotta go internal and unwind that. And so when that's I've witnessed this with people is at some point they unwind whatever it is, so I call them boo-boos, kind of loosen up the grip on, I think trauma's now carrying some baggage. It's
It does.
overused by a lot of people, especially like, Gen Z and all this. But yeah, so like they let go of this boo-boo and all of a sudden, like the creativity just opens up. And all of a sudden the thing that they I suggest, well, why don't you raise your price? Why don't we do this strategy? Why don't you don't want to run ads? You don't want to do all these things, like, and you can tell that there's not a really logical reason for it to be there. Like, it's a feeling. Well, I don't feel like that's me. I go, okay. I mean, that's a sign. Anytime someone says that's not me, I go, oh, okay, that's a program running. And so uh, when those things become unwound, the creativity opens up, the willingness to take a step that they couldn't imagine themselves taking a year ago now becomes obvious as like the obvious thing. Now they're excited to do it. I mean, it goes from I'm totally against this to why the hell have I not done this already? I've got to
Right.
like take action immediately. And then that can be a domino that that goes that gets results for a very long time. Just one thing. And we have no idea what they're tied to. Like you make that one tweak and you're like, one day you realize, oh, I'm not doing that habit I was trying to break for a while. Like magically, like I look back, the last 30 days, and then another 6 months go by and you go, actually, these other 3 areas of my life actually saw improvement too. Maybe it had to do with that thing I released. I went to that one somatic breath work thing and let go of that thing. And all of a sudden the dominoes start tumbling. It's pretty cool. I like to tell people to, when they have some type of experience, is like, look for the magic in things, even the small ones. Cause you can just accept that maybe one thing out of the ordinary is that you desire to happen actually occurs, then they can start stacking from there.
It's interesting that you said that. I agree. When we charge $150,000 up front for the year for 12 months, and then or $1 million for 7 years. And so when somebody, and our by the way, our company's called Focal Point, even though they know me as my name, Marx Acosta-Rubio, it's called Focal Point because I really believe you got to find that little focal point and you make a little twig and everything works better. And so when they first come in, we have a sort of an issue. I won't tell you what the process is because it's kind of proprietary, but pretty cool. But we have a process by which we say, okay, well, now we're going to indoctrinate you into this philosophy. And you're going to be aware, sort of open. You can take the overly used metaphor, red pill of the matrix. And it's 2 weeks. Now, we don't take them anywhere, although they do go somewhere. But in those 2 weeks, we make the component of changing the metaphor, right, that they've been playing with. But we do it in a very covert way. Because if they know you're doing it, they will resist it. If they're experiencing it just as an experience, they're going to come out with their own idea that I got this sort of on my own, which is significantly more important. Unless, of course, like I had a client send me a referral for a woman whose husband, CFO, killed himself and they found him. And so she couldn't sleep, and I did a little process, took an hour, and it was done, no problem, right? So unless it's specific like that, you have to sort of trick the mind a little bit. If you do Muay Thai or do Jiu-Jitsu and you're good at it, and you see how they train the kids, in the early part, it's about playing. It's all about playing. It's not about doing good at Jiu-Jitsu, it's about playing. So the brain associates. I love this, so much fun. Now, as we get older, we choose different reasons why we do it. But we have to treat the mind like a child. We have to treat the mind like it's a kid, not an adult. Because it doesn't think like an adult. If it already thought that, you wouldn't have that problem. You already are in that component of it. So the idea is to find, the biggest thing about my work, for example, is somebody who come in and say they have all these different problems, all these challenges, like Ted, yes, I need to make more money, blah, 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 and all these components. And we'll dialogue ad nauseum. And what I'm looking for is, where's that little freaking needle in his body that's poking him? You thought I was going to say needle in a haystack. That's poking him where he can't. You ever have an itch you can't scratch? You're like, where's that coming from? You try to, you kind of feel it around, but you don't know where it's at, like a referral itch or something. It's like that. It's the source and the cause are not always easily discerned.
I mean, if they were, they probably would have already figured it out. And that's the thing, is like people are like, oh, I'm going to think my way there. I'm like, well, how long have you been thinking about it?
Yeah, maybe thinking has gotten you and will get you this component. I mean, it's sometimes thinking does work. It's easy stuff, right? If you look at the financials, you go, oh, I have to do X, Y, and Z. Great. X, Y, and Z, you tell your company, raise prices, cut that vendor off. There are things that we do every single day that moves us in the direction we're trying to move to. Well, there's always things that hold us back from truly getting to where we want to get to. And that's the idea of cause or source versus cause, right? And, the source of the pain might be X, but the cause something entirely different. If you can find that cause and eliminate it, change it, fix it, whatever you want, at that point in time, the explosiveness of the attitude and morale is incredible. Now, they may not get a result in income right away, but their level of happiness goes up. My very first client was a guy, I told the story before, I tell it all the time because it's a great story. I lost it all and then had an epiphany moment and then made twice as much. I went from 10 million and $1 million a year in income plus to negative to then 20 million in cash and $3, $4, $5 million a year in 3 years versus first it could be 7 years. So it was much easier and faster second time. But I did almost everything the complete opposite of what I had done the first time. Complete opposite. Literally, I mean, I put my values upside down. I just stopped wearing suits, didn't go to the office. And I didn't make it on internet marketing because I'm my guy. I made it on regular business to business component of it. And so as that happened, a lot of my friends and people who lived in California at the time, they saw me grow from Mr. Everybody to Mr. Nothing. And I mean, I was the poorest of my friends to begin with, even at the level I was at, right? These guys were hedge fund guys, private equity fund guys, entertainer guys, so on and so on. So they stopped coming to my parties because we had no parties, stopped calling me because I was down and out. It was actually really interesting. Hated the experience, 2 years, don't wish on anybody, hardest thing of my entire life for, in terms of economics. And then when I started coming back, a buddy of mine who I'd known since forever was like, dude, how in the hell are you doing this? Like, we thought you were done. And he's like, I just went through a tough time like what you did. I'm not as bad as you are because I lost the plane, the condo in Mammoth, the friends, the private schools, all gone. I barely kept the house, wife, and kids, right? Barely. Thank God I did, though. And so he's like, hey, help me out. And he had no kid at the time, no wife. And he goes, I'll pay you $10,000 a month. And I'm already, making good money at the time. And I was like, I can't help you, buddy. Not my thing, right? He goes, no, come on, man. Just tell me what to do. You've heard that before. Tell me what to do. I'll do it. I said, okay, cool. So I started sharing with him everything I'd done. I mean, every single tactic, Mike, every principle, and nothing was happening for that guy. Nothing. Not a damn thing. Year goes by, and he's paying me $10,000 a month. And I was like, dude, stop paying me. Like, I'm clearly ineffective at this. I suck at this. Like, I don't know what happened. Like, but you keep your money. No, I believe I can do it. And I think he also got value in sort of spewing his problems with me. And then one day I thought, well, hey, let's go through something called V2GP2, Vision, Values, Goals, Principle, Price, Promise. That I did myself. And I started asking him questions. And we get to the last question. And he goes, I asked him, are you willing to pay the price? Like kind of I asked Ted. And he kind of stopped. And Sean goes, no, I'm not. I thought, okay, now we're getting somewhere for the first time in 12 months. So we either magnify your skill or we minimize your goals. One's got either we bring your goals down to where your skill level is at now, your desire, or we magnify desire to hit the goals you want. What do you want? Like, do you want just, are we done at $400,000 a year? Are we good? Or do you really want to pass that 7 figures? No, I want to pass it. Okay, great. So I was like, let me kind of have a little bit of a dialogue with you. And I had taught him the role of the CEO, which is, I see ourselves as, or entrepreneur, is strategy, team building, and sales, right? Your role is to be the chief strategist, chief team builder, and chief sales officer. That's your goal. But I realized, and that was taught to me by a guy named Dan Mertenberg, who worked with Lee Iacocca. But I realized that that's not what did it for me. What did it was a change in mindset, what you call neurology, right? And the mindset to me is defined easily. It's what I hold to be true about myself, the world, and those around me. If I hold things to be true that aren't true, I'm going to behave that way. So what we want to do is find out how do we change what we hold to be true about ourselves, the world around us, and those around us, so that we can better interact with the reality to make better decisions, have a better attitude, and achieve the things we want. So I ran through a process, and you know the story, because I'm sure, Ted's already told you, he doubled his income in 6 months, and he's now pretty wealthy, $10+ million, and lives a great life, wife, kid. I mean, he's made some, I didn't do it, he did it. Some dramatic changes in a positive light, all because we had a little bit of a change in a mind shift. Because we began to look at what do you hold to be true? What are your real belief systems? Belief drive behavior, behavior drive results. Content and process is two little guys between behavior and results. That's a Hermosi. That's the how-tos. So the how-to and the what-to are little holes. But the belief is big, behavior is big, and results are either big or small, depending. But belief drives behavior, behavior drives result. Most people focus on content and process, which is right here. Mm-hmm. And that's where people, they coach. That's not me, buddy. Content and process, it's valuable, it's important. I'm not dismissing it. But if we don't hit the BBR model, in fact, Richard Koch, who's a good friend of mine, wrote about it in his book, Unreasonable Success. And he called it behavior action. He modified it, because it's Richard. He's a genius. But it's the same thing, right? BBR. Belief, behavior, results. And so when you look at somebody who is making X amount of dollars, for example, Ted, whatever he's making on his business, I want to find out what does he believe about that. Now, we know he's got beliefs elsewhere when it comes to physiology and physicality, right, and spirituality. He's got beliefs that are serving his results, and he's got some regulation in there that says, hey, if it's not working, we change it. We're going to modify these things because we want the results. But on the income, they're not there, right? They're at whatever thermometer level he's got, the thermostat, right? You set the thermostat at temperature in your house, and that's it. If it gets too hot, AC kicks in. If it gets too cold, you've heard this 1,000 times. Heater kicks in. My job is to go, okay, well, what do you want the thermostat to be at? What do you really want the temperature to be? And then we got to find out how to move that. And, you can't go out there and put a jacket on, and you just move the thermostat. Let that work itself. And that's how we really make the changes.
How do you discuss or do you get into identity at all? Beliefs and identity kind of intermingle, or a set of beliefs form the identity in some way. Do you go into that territory?
Well, I mean, Robert Dilts wrote a really great book about that, about identities and things of that nature. And so to answer the question is, if it's relevant and useful, yes. If it's not, no. So, my philosophy is that I have what John Grinder would call the know-nothing state. I show up to a coaching client with a total blank state, like I'm a total dumbass. I know nothing. So I don't have preconceived tactics. I'm not going to do A, B, C with this guy, or C, D, F, or I'm not going to jab, cross, hook. I'm entering this with, I'm only going to respond to what I get. I know what the outcome is. I know what they told me they want. I know what they think they told me they want. But I'm going to respond, like Bruce Lee would say, like water, to what they give me. So when we start looking at modalities, for example, therapy, right? With NLP, Gestalt, unconscious restructuring, Havening, TFT, you name whatever. They're all great. But if I'm just a PRI practitioner, or I'm just a TFT practitioner, or I'm just a whatever practitioner, then I only have one hammer or one set of tools. Although PRI is pretty cool because they're pretty encompassing. So I look at it in terms of like, what do I have to do to get this individual to get the desired result that they want? If they start using the word identity, I'm going to mirror it back, because that's what the flavor of the month is for them. Nothing wrong with it. I'm not making fun of it. I'm just saying that's a way for me to enter their world, see what they see, and then help them make it so the way they want to see it. So everything else comes in. Because there are people who go, I'm skinny, and they're fat. You can say it all you want, but that's not going to happen, right?
Right. Well, I mean, there's identity at like the cognitive level, but then there's identity at the embodied level, where it's then believed. But I think most people that, oh, I am a musician or I am an author, and they're going to write this book or something. But if their body they may say it, but their body resists it, and then it just
Sure.
creates more conflict.
Yeah, there's incongruency, right? I mean, and really it's all about congruency. Change and progress is about congruency, nature, nurture. It's about, that's why truth is so important. If you're broke, say I'm broke. No point in saying you're not broke, right? Just say I'm broke. If your business sucks, then my business sucks. Being positive, people think being like W. Clement Stone, who's the guy that put Napoleon Hill on the map, who wrote Think and Grow Rich. And Stone started an insurance company that now is Aon, a multi-billion-dollar insurance company. Stone's a great guy. Lived to be 100 years old. Is an amazing life. He coined the term positive mental attitude. Let me phrase that. He popularized the term. It was first coined in Napoleon Hill in his book Master Key to Riches in 1939 or 50 something. No, 39, 39, 40, 41, 42. Anyway, around that time, early 1940s, late 1930s. He wrote it as one of 17 riches. But it was popularized by Stone, who was a student of Hill, as Mr. Positive Mental Attitude. And then Stone and Hill collaborated, wrote a book together, great story about their collaboration for 10 years, but called Success Through Positive Mental Attitude. And they explain that a positive mental attitude is not this idea that it's all great and dandy and life is wonderful. It's the best attitude for the job at hand. If you're fighting World War II, you're going to have to go, roses are great, there is no job. Like, you're in America and you got to kill the bad guys. That you better have the right attitude. So PMA is really having the right attitude. But it is about focusing on what you want, not what you don't want. Mm-hmm. They made that distinction. The challenge we get today, I mean, I saw a kid on social media who destroyed this one thing, and then they pepper sprayed him. And the shock, the visceral shock that this kid had, because there were repercussions to his actions, did not compute. He's like, how dare you do this to me? Like, I'm entitled to do what I want. Like, they're so disconnected from reality. They have a lot of problems, right? We want the opposite. We want to be so connected to reality. So if your identity is a father, that's cool. Because if you're a dad, you're a dad. If a husband, you're a husband. If you go to the gym, you say, I go to the gym. The identity must match the action or the label, the reality of the world. Now, you can say, I'm a better dad or trying to be a better dad, but to say something that you're not, you're going to have a psychosis at that point, right? Somebody who keeps saying that they're skinny, but they're really not skinny, and they eat Twinkies and go to the gym, that's a big, big problem. So, yes, you're right about identity. I can't dispute what you said. From my perspective, we have to look at the fact and say, okay, well, what do you think you are? And does that belief match that behavior? I tend to, when Milton Erickson started learning about Erickson hypnosis, which later became Erickson hypnosis, he had polio. So he couldn't move his body. So he would be laid in bed, and his parents would have people come over the house, and through the crack of the door, he could see them, but he couldn't hear them. So to entertain them, there's no TV, right? There's no radio. Entertain himself, he started to watch the behavior. And he began to get a lot of clues about the physicality and how the body tells the story of what actually happens inside the brain, more so than the mouth and the words. Mm-hmm. That's why he became the greatest hypnotherapist that ever existed, because he could read the unconscious mind, which was expressed by the physical body, the mannerisms. Somebody goes, "You happy?" Yeah, very much so. It's obvious, right? Okay, right? So when he started to listen to the vernacular, he started to go, well, what does the body or the subconscious mind tell me, and what is the conscious mind telling me? And, how do we get this to be congruent? So he would send the conscious mind away by telling stories and talk to the unconscious mind, because that's where the changes were made, and then come back. So we don't want to talk here. We want to educate here, but we want to persuade here, right? Because this is where all the changes really happen.
Have you gotten into much of Tennyson's work, conscious language and some of the body language stuff?
Yeah, it's great stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. I mean, what do you think about it? Like, what's your take on it? Sounds like you're very familiar with very different things, and I've gone down that rabbit hole a bit and found a lot of value in it. I don't think it's like the Bible or anything like that, but what's your take on it?
so, I mean, like anything else, right? When you read a book or study anybody's work, i.e., for example, Tennyson, you have to look and say, okay, well, what am I looking to get from the book? What understanding do I want? The vocabulary with the physiology, how does it interrelate to each other? The problem with Tennyson is he just goes down a crazy rabbit hole. But the concepts are true, right? You cannot deny that. So, okay, well, I get the concepts, and you go have your moment. I mean, Napoleon Hill in the book Think and Grow Rich, he had some weird stuff in there, right? But like, all right, look, he had people in his mind, and like he spoke to spirits, like, all right, like, hey, we don't know if it's true or not, but it's a little bit like, okay, cool, like you do you, boo. But you look at the principles, and they're just fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
What I look for is, I'm a very pragmatic utilitarian, right? So I want to know what works. And having sort of the history of martial arts as my primary personal growth development, I was in my teenage, I started studying Bruce Lee. I didn't care about katas and belts, and I just wanted to kick somebody's butt, right? So I wonder what works. Like, I don't care about the forms because it doesn't make any difference to me. I want to know if I get jumped as a skinny kid, what do I do? Do I run? What do I do? So I always had this idea of what works. So, and of course, Bruce studied different styles from fencing to Muay Thai, you name it, whatever it can. And look at mixed martial arts today. It's called mixed martial arts. They put rules in it, so it's really not very mixed martial arts, and there's time limits, what have you. But we went from a stylistic approach to hey, they're going to fight, and one guy's going to win, one guy's going to lose. And then we're going to try to win that battle any way we can. I see life and business the same way. Every day you wake up, and it's not the battle, but like, hey, you're either going to do good or you're not going to do good. So if Tennyson work helps you achieve the desired outcome, then it's highly useful. But I've yet to see a modality that across the board is effective on every problem, every issue.
Mm-hmm.
Jiu-jitsu, for example, has its weaknesses. It had no leg locks, it had no takedowns, and no stand-up. Now it has leg locks, but still no takedowns, right? And because wrestling crushes it. And really, not much for stand-up. I mean, Hickson Gracie's son, just got demolished in the last 3 fights, and they should retire a long time ago. And he's a phenomenal jiu-jitsu player. So, there is the appropriateness of a stylistic approach to anything at that given context and content. Things are context and content related. If you are outside with your wife and 3 dudes, God forbid, pick a fight with you, jiu-jitsu is not the style you want. You better Muay Thai your ass out of there, or JKD, or anything punching and kicking, run, scream, shoot, knife, whatever you can, right? It's not the appropriate moment. If you are in an airplane and there's an unruly guy who's giving the stewardess a hard time, jiu-jitsu is the way to choke his ass out, right? Mm-hmm. So everything's context and content related. So our job is to have as many arrows in our quivers. So when we go hunting for the problem, based on the wind, the temperature, the distance, the environment, the prey, we pick the right arrow and we shoot the right arrow at the right target. So that's why, I love NLP. I think Bandler and Grinder are fantastic. I love Stephen Heller. I thought his unconscious was amazing. Milton Erickson. These guys are all great, but they're not generalists, mm-hmm. right? They are great at X. They are specialists.
I think that anybody needs to be in something for at least a decade to be able to pick up that generalist thing. And so, like my wife, she's a psychotherapist. And
oh, very cool.
So, it's, you meet a new psychotherapist and they're like, I've got 1, 2, or 3 methods. And that's, I got CBT and DBT. That's all I got.
Right.
So everything, that's what we're doing. And
CBT is great.
It's great.
Yeah.
And then a decade rolls by, but then they pick up all these modalities. Now the session is not, we're going to use this method. Now they're able to, what I call it, DJing. They can DJ the set, and the client's not going to know what methods are being used, but it's effective. For myself, my first steps into personal development was through a marketing conference. Then I joined a mastermind, and I noticed other people doing personal development, and they were friendly to psychedelics. And I go, oh, okay, like maybe some mushrooms would be helpful. And I found them helpful. And then I studied a little bit of like yoga text. I started studying some of the ancient stuff, and I go, oh, this is really helpful. Uh, and then I go to a Landmark forum, which I'd been invited to Landmark for years, and I was like, no. Finally, I'm like, oh, I'm open to this now. I do Landmark. I do that for a while. I bump up against, well, this isn't really like it's really effective until it's not, and then I get into like somatics. It's like, oh, this is opening up a lot of doors. Well, now a lot of the stuff that we were covering in Landmark makes a lot more sense. That my emotional body was not ready to receive the full transmission there. And I look back in that room, I go, dude, there's 120 people in that room. Maybe 10 of us were open to any type of like depth there. And so to your point, becoming a generalist, it's like, oh, okay, then it's like, I did some ayahuasca. Okay, there's benefits there, but there's also a ceiling there. But then you can go back over in this other track over here, develop, and then come back over to ayahuasca and get something new. And so there's this, I think you're like spot on. You got to be a generalist, or I'm interested in only, if I'm going to hire a coach, if I'm going to be working with somebody, I want somebody who's been in it for a decade. They're a generalist. They've acquired all these different arrows and tools, and now they're, I'm not, as their client, I'm not even sure. Like when I was younger, I was like, oh, I could pick out, I go to a retreat and we're working with, just this one modality. And by the, and I come back to the retreat a second time, I want to figure this out. I come back a third time, I got to figure this out. I start figuring it out. And then, but everything has the point of diminishing returns. And so I don't expect everyone to do that, to go and find a modality and then like exhaust it to the point of diminishing returns. But it's really good to be in the presence of somebody who has, and
Well,
is
that's why they
going to
pay
the
me,
next
right?
level. That's right.
Yeah, that's what they pay me, so they don't have to, so I can do it for them. And
Yeah, you don't
it's
have,
like,
because when you hit the point of diminishing returns, you're almost wasting your own time in some ways. I mean, except for like knowing that you did that, you go, oh, I hit the point of diminishing returns. If everyone tried to do it the way you did it, it's going to take them a decade to get to something that you can get them there in a year or two.
exactly right. And so, interesting, because most of the clients that I have, they don't want that at all. They have no interest in seeking all these things to help their life and business. They're just driven by whatever goals they have and whatever life they have, and they want somebody else, which is smart, to help them in that capacity, right? So if you think about a doctor, today's world, or maybe a few decades ago, he's not going to give you penicillin for everything, right? You come in and go, my toe hurts. All right, well, here, try this antifungal thing. Oh, that didn't work. Try this, right? Their job is try to heal the body as best as they can. You go to doctor saying, this itchy, this ouchy, this whatever the case may be, and you hope that they kind of figure out what it is, right? Not always the case. That's what consultants and coaches really need to be. The problem is that it's now been bifurcated. You have therapists, life coaches, and you have business coaches. I happen to be both because I'm a business guy who happened to do therapy for his own component first. So it's very rare. But what's beneficial is if you can look at a P&L, balance sheet, marketing plan, your staff, whatever, and still have the therapeutic piece over here, you can really mix those very well. And they understand that. And if you're really good at it, you can do it covertly, where they don't know you're doing shit on them, but it's affecting the pieces that they want, right? So, it becomes, and it's fun. For me, it's fun. It's the ability to be able to solve a problem independent of what the individual thinks the problem is, and rather what the result that they're trying to get is. And you have to make sure you have a well-formed outcome. Sometimes they think they want, like Ted does not have a well-formed outcome, which is half of the problem in his business.
There's a question I want to run by you, but it's a little bit somewhat related, but it's going to go deeper. Ted, is there something you want to respond with?
Well, there was one aspect you were talking about, the immediate feedback you get in fighting, where you can't pretend that the punch isn't there because it's going to hit you in life and business specifically, and even perhaps with my unclear outcome. It's easier to ignore certain punches. You could know that there's pain, you could know that there's haymakers coming to you, but you could still avoid the reality of the needs and the kicks. Um, how do you open up the scope of awareness to someone who might be focused on one problem when they could be looking at a plethora of attacks?
So to answer your question is no, it's you who has that problem, not you, the general sense. It's Ted that
Ah,
has that problem. It's I, not you. And the reason is because when you say you have disassociated in your mind from the problem rather than associated. So I'd like you to associate with the problem so you can feel it. Do you ever go skiing or snowboarding?
yeah, snowboarding.
Okay, cool. When you snowboard, where are your, I don't know if you're any good, but when you snowboard, where are your eyes?
Usually downhill.
Okay, but how, like right at the tip of your snowboard or halfway or at the very bottom? Like, where are you looking?
Usually towards the bottom, like the tip of my snowboard, front tip, and then I catch the edge to steer with my shoulders and my hips.
So you're not very good at snowboarding then, is what you're telling me.
I mean, I haven't gone for a long time, but I used to do black diamonds and used to really get after it.
Because you're athletic and you could power through it, or because you had technique?
I would say the way I was taught was probably just powering through it, being athletic.
Yeah, you're super athletic. I mean, I think any sport you take on, my guess is you're going to do well because you just have that athletic ability to move your body. I don't. I'm like the opposite of that. Like you got to tell me exactly technique, and I'll get it. But if you naturally, I'm a freaking disaster, right? A great snowboarder and a great skier, their eyesight is generally at the very bottom as far as it will go. They don't look at the board. They don't look at the thing. They're looking down that way. The further the horizon you look, the smoother your moves can be. The shorter the horizon, the choppier your moves are going to be. So the reason why you don't feel the pain is because you don't want to look down, so you don't want to look out. You don't want to look, you sort of look away. And you don't get that notice of what's happening. Hence, in order for you to get that feedback that you're talking about, we have to figure out, well, where is the downhill? Where is it you want to end up at? If we're snowboarding, you and I together, we have places in Utah, Park City. If we're going down there, like, hey man, where do you want to go? That one or that one? Like, which way do you want to go? I want to go that way. Okay, cool. Now we know we're going to go. And now whatever path you take is up to you. Now we have the path, but you can go on the left side, the right side, you can do the tube, you can do the jump, whatever you want. You can just go straight, you could but you know where you're going. And you have that component, I want to go there. You can change your mind if you want, but you won't go there. If you're good at the technique of snowboarding, you're going to keep your eye on that target and you're going to make smooth movements on the edge, like a little pencil. Not, you won't hear, which I'm sure when you went back diamonds, that's all we heard.
That's all I heard.
Right?
I thought it was the ice.
Yeah, no, buddy, it's you. It's you. Now, it could be the ice, but it's you. It's not bad. You're just super athletic, right? And so, which is bad for the metaphor of business because if things don't come naturally to you where you can power through them, you immediately think something's wrong or it demotivates you. So there is a fine, see, you shook your head because you confirmed it to be true. There's a fine line between picking the target and then looking at each day as a slow motion day and keeping your eyes on that target so your daily moves are smooth, not What gets us in business is putting our eyes down at the bottom of our board versus our eyes at the bottom of the hill. And so all you do is get a change in perspective. Let me give you an example. You changed your weightlifting routine to include running and whatever have you, right? Because, you're getting older and you have a daughter now and you want to spend money. So you had your reasons for doing it. How do you know it's working?
I feel great. Weight has shaved off. I could run farther than I've ever ran, and I could still maintain the strength that I've had. And my wife and everybody around me is like, "Bro, you're looking really good."
Great, great. And when you started the journey, what image did you have in mind?
I actually had a AI image of just like the 10-year goal, and the first notch of that was starting this progress. So I'm about 3 years in that process, and I'm already getting closer.
Good for you. And what feeling did you have?
When I saw the end result, when I had that image,
Before you took the journey, what emotion, what feeling were you hoping to achieve inside your body?
I mean, there was excitement, and what I was hoping for, really what I've had now is more of just calm, settledness, a confidence. That was really the driving force.
So now I want you to think about the finances, and you talked about they're not where you want them to be. And most people would answer that to be the case, right? Well, most people. So when you look at the finances, what emotion are you looking for that you don't already currently have? Or do you have that emotion when you think about finances?
I mean, the emotion would be the same calm and confidence I have now, I take a couple days off at the gym. I know I still got it.
Do you have that same confidence, calm, and emotion in the finances?
To an extent, not to the level of which I'd want.
Okay. And there's your answer as to why you're not moving in that direction.
Because he's
Is
not
it?
experiencing that same feeling.
Because he has the feeling.
Oh, he has the feeling, so he feels complete. Is what you're saying?
Yeah. So,
No
there's,
tension.
yeah, there is no propelling forward either by chasing a feeling or running away from a feeling, right? Either people move forward or away from. So what he had, the change he made in his physiology was he wanted a different feeling. Now it might be similar, but it was still different in a different image. And he goes, this is what I think I want now. This feels like this feels like this. I'm going to move in this way, right? This is propelling me. His finances, where he says he wants to get to where he's at, are kind of more like this. Like he doesn't feel exactly like he wants to, but it's close enough. So this is why you see people that hit these roller coasters. I was infamous for this. Make a lot of money, lose a lot of money. Make a lot of money, lose a lot of money, right? Roller coasters, because you're chasing a feeling that you just kind of go, that's not it. Oh shit, that's not it either. Oh, that's not it. Oh shit, that's not it, right? Like you kind of do this
I know that
component,
one.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Most entrepreneurs do.
Yeah, I've made a lot and I've lost a lot, and never did it feel amazing. Like when I was experiencing those big waves. Yeah.
Correct. And so what we have to sort of realize that the uber successful people, it's like any sport. Whatever sport you want to include in there, whether it's running high or lifting weight, whatever you want. When you're in it, doing it, you're feeling good in the process of doing the sport. Even if it, you're benching, it still hurts, but it feels good. There is immediate gratification and feedback to your question earlier, Ted, that the feeling of what you're doing feels good. You have the outcome in mind in terms of I want to feel like this, look like this, whatever, but the process itself gives you feedback that shows that you're moving in that progressive direction. Whatever it may be, right? And now we've all had days where in our business, things are going great and things are going crappy, right? But same for the gym, same for running. Some days you do good, some days you don't. But it's the ability to connect with the feeling of the activity, the work, when you're doing it, that really will make you more financially successful, is to chase that feeling. So most of us, almost all of us, really have an aversion to the work that we've decided to do. We don't love it. We love some aspects of it, but we don't love the work itself. And so we have to figure out, okay, well, how do we deal with that? Because that is a reality. You've got choices. You can get rid of that work and just not do it. I've done that, right? You can delegate it. Done that too. You can abdicate it. That's a disaster. You can ignore it, but still look at it. That's even worse. Or you can engage with it appropriately and decide, I'm going to do this work even though I don't like it, because it's momentary. That's optimism, right? Momentary pain for greater good. So your challenge, Ted, is your feeling of where you are and where you really want to be. Really, I know the goals are different, but the feeling that you associate with those aren't very much different based on what you said. And the feedback you get daily doesn't give you the results or doesn't give you the feedback to get to this piece over here. So we'd have to take the feeling and either go, hey buddy, just where you're at is fine. Let it go. Just go live your life and be a good guy. Whatever you're gonna do, don't worry about it. Just bring that shit down and move on. No, so that's one possibility, right? Or we go, well, how is this really different than this here? And let's get associated to that. Okay, cool. All right, I got that now. So now I know what I don't feel that I want to feel, and it's compelling for me, and I've got the image, and I've got it well written out and stuff. And now we go, okay, cool. So how do we know that we're going to get a feedback mechanism that tells you if you're heading in the direction or not? So do you guys ever go to Disneyland or Disney World?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as a kid.
Never, but I've been to enough amusement parks to feel.
Well, there's a ride called I happen to love Disney World. I felt it's amazing, silly, but I love it. There's a ride. I don't love the rides. I like people watching and just kind of hanging out, and it's kind of fun. So anyway, so there's a little car, Autotopia. Autotopia is a little car that you drive, and you get the gas pedal and the brake, and there's a line in the middle of the road, so you can't go too far this way, too far that way, right? Just boom, boom. So if you try to get off the rails, it won't let you because it's on a rail. So you think you're driving by yourself, but you're really not. You kind of just Best you can do is keep the car on the road, heading the direction. That's how goals that are appropriately set and achieved work. You just keep this feedback mechanism. No, you got to turn right. No, you got to turn left. Got to turn right. That's motivating and progressive and powerful. So we have to build in the proper goal, the proper emotion, the proper whatever have you, the current situation, what reality really is, and then build in little areas here that tell us when we're headed the wrong way or if we're in the right way. That feedback mechanism. If you're snowboarding and your board wiggles, you immediately correct. That's feedback saying this is not the right way to do it, right? You catch something or whatever happens, you get immediate feedback. Your days are like that. So the immediate feedback has to be built in to let us know whether we're headed towards the progress we want or not. And emotionally, you will know. A, you'll be tired. At the end of the day, you'll sleep like a baby. This whole sleeping problem people have and stuff, I have an aura ring. You know what I know miss my best sleep? When I give my best each day. That's when I sleep the best. And when I don't eat too late, right? So eat earlier in the day and then sleep my best, right? But sometimes on a Friday night or something, I'll eat at 8 o'clock at night, right? Put on the TV, have a steak, watch with the wife a good movie. Fuck it. You know what I'm going to do?
That's interesting because I never thought about it the way you just said it. But the older I've gotten, I go to bed, I don't have the racing thoughts like I did when I was younger, right? And if you did give your best that day, you probably aren't trying to problem solve before bed. There's a sense of completion when you gave your best.
Buddy, let's think about, I don't know how old you guys are. I think I'm certainly older than you guys. But let's think about this for a second. Did you have a job as a teenager?
Yes.
Yeah.
How'd you sleep?
Like a baby, from what I remember.
Dead to the world.
Yeah.
Even in college. Do you guys go to college?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Me too. Dead to the
I was asleep and took naps. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Dead to the world. Dead to the world, right? So we stop sleeping as well as we get older, not because we're older, but because we forgot what gave us that sound sleep. The Bible says the sleep of a laboring man is sweet. Well, duh, there's the answer. Like, why have to reinvent it, right? So if I do all the stuff that everybody does, the ice bath, and I have the sauna. I bought all the tickets because I'm just that gullible. But I can tell you that I've done the saunas, I've done the ice bath. I do it every single day, this ice bath. Nothing makes me sleep better than when I'm tired. When I'm tired, not just physically, but primarily emotionally, mentally. It takes more energy to run the brain than to run the body. Mm-hmm. So I work out every day, and so do you guys. But if I, like last night, man, went to sleep at 10:45, didn't wake up till 6. Woke up like this. All right, that's a good sleep, right? Great sleep. Why? Because I didn't wake up in the middle of the night to go pee or whatever. Just woke up, no racing thought, nothing. So we have to solve our anxiety problems by realizing why we're put on this earth, and that's to be productive. And productive, just again, I don't want we're known for double time off, double income, right? So I'm not about working uber long and hard. I'm about doing the right work at the right time in the right way. Yeah. Just like you would lift weights.
So what I'm hearing is rewind a little bit here. Right? You're holding a vision of the future, and that's the horizon. And then you're present with what you're executing right now, and what you're looking for is the feedback. So in business, what is the feedback you're getting? Is it purely by the numbers, or of going, is this actually taking me where I'm going? What are the different types of data that you're taking in that's going to help you correct as you go along?
So I'll give you 2 answers, and I'll give you an exercise that you guys will love. So let's go back to the metaphor of snowboarding and or skiing, because we're already in there, right? We're already pregnant with that deal. As you're going down the mountains, you're getting feedback from the wind, from the temperature, from your feet, right? With the ground, what you see, the trees, the horizon, the target, the other skiers. There's a lot of feedback coming on. And you're interpreting that feedback as obstacles or pathways. I got to avoid this crazy guy over here who looks like he drank a little too much. I got to go over here because this looks like a nice bit of powder. You're making moves throughout the nanosecond to get you safely and funly over to your target, right? Cool. Business in the day is just like that. You have to look at what is coming, what's already present in your world, and how do you deal with that safely and efficiently to move yourself closer to your goal. So sometimes you just do crap work, guys. You just nothing but deal with miscellaneous, 80% of junk. And some would say, like my good friend Richard Koch would say, ignore it. I don't believe that to be the case because it doesn't help our psyche, by the way, which is why Tim Ferriss probably has problems. That you have to deal with it. You got to deal with it. You got to deal with it. You got to take it head on and be like, hey man, I just got to get this done, you know, and that gives you feedback. So what the feedback is, how many things did you move forward in the day? And it's not a quantity, but rather did you feel that you moved things along the way that were valuable and useful? The exercise I'm going to give you is at the end of the week, write down the things that you moved along the way that made an impact and achievement to your goal. Write down what did you do? Not all the things you did, but you know, solve this thing over here, fix this issue here, resolve this over here. That's if you do no time management tips, tricks, techniques. We can talk about that if you want, because it's one of my favorite topics or subjects in the world. If you just at the end of Friday, whatever, just write down what you did. Don't look at your notes. Don't look at your calendar. Just from your head, write it down. If that doesn't propel you forward, you got to take a look at, you know, what am I doing wrong and what do I need to do differently? But it will tell your brain, hey, we got another week coming up. I got to do this again. I will make sure and keep you focused and directed into the things that you need to do. Now, that's one answer, one piece of it. The other piece is that you don't really need daily feedback. What you need is to have laid out a path that you know you're already moving towards. So, you know, if we're talking about time management, which I'm gonna interject just for a second, if you allow me, just the liberty of it. It is probably one of the most studied subjects I've had the pleasure of hating since the beginning of time. To this day, after being in this world since the age of 18, I still read all the stupid books on time management, still looking for better ways and better answers to do it. And there's a reason, because we love control and we love perspective. Hi, baby. We love control, we love perspective. And it gives us that when we read, plus it makes us feel good that we're in control, we're in charge, right? And I can distill it in a simple philosophy. And I'll tell you what the philosophy is. David Allen is right, everybody else is wrong.
I read that book per your recommendation. It's
The
fantastic.
problem,
What's this book?
I'm glad. Getting Things Done by David Allen. Actually, he's got 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
Getting Things Done by David Allen, Making It All Work, Ready for Anything, and Teams GTD, TEAM, TEEN, Team GTD. So he's got a bunch, but you can look him up. So
He's your favorite. You're like, okay, he just nailed it.
well, he's a friend, and I've
You're
tried.
biased. No.
Well, I said just in case I am biased, right? Just in case I'm biased, like, hey, it's out there, guys. I mean, he's not like a best friend, but you know,
Right.
we've been friends for 20 years. But I try to break his system on a weekly basis. I try to prove him wrong on a weekly basis. I really do, because I hate it. I absolutely hate it. You know, it's like I hate the system, but I can't live without it. And I'm probably a weird guy. Most people who do it love it, right? But I hate it because, you know, I don't want to be stuck to anything. But I cannot. It's so effective at getting more from less that you can't ignore it. Here's the problem, Ted. Since you've read the book, 99% of the people don't do it the right way. They think they get it, but they don't get it. And David talks about this. He says it takes 2 years to get it. It takes 2 years of application, of doing it, to understand it. He equates that with the work of a martial artist, right? Now, I don't know if you guys have done jiu-jitsu or kickboxing, whatever, but in jiu-jitsu, which I've done, I was a white belt for 12 months. 12 months as a white belt. And a blue belt forever. And I went 5, 6 days a week. And I still sucked at it, right? And so the principles of GTD are kind of like that. Now, my kids get it really quickly. They got it because we taught them early. But most of us old farts, because we have these bad habits. Let me give you why, because the important piece is why is it the best effective system? Because as a guy who wants to be relaxed and economical in his achievements, right? And be able to achieve more from less, I cannot have a thought more than once. I've got to let my brain do its best job so it can think, not remember, because remembering and thinking are not the same thing. I know people tell you this. And I've got to be able to be smart when I'm stupid. So if I have a great idea about something and I get inspired to write down the project and the action items, all I have to do now for the feedback, Ted, is just to check those boxes. Even if I don't feel like it, Even if I don't think it's making progress, it's too late. I already was smart enough at one point to write it down. Now it modifies and changes. Now here's the postscript, the caveat, and this is where most people, including myself, it took me a long time to get this, so I'm going to self-admit I'm retard number one. He defines projects and actions by this. An action is something you do at a physical location. Email Mike, call Ted, you know, just, you know, market errands. They're just actions, physical actions you could write down. A project is more than one action. But the project isn't, you know, create podcast, which is what you might put, right? Like, you know, you guys might go, hey, we're going to create a really cool podcast. So you create podcast. That's not the project. The project must be written in a very specific way. How must it be written? What do you guys think?
Describe the end result.
So give me an example.
Podcast has been launched every week. It's posted every Wednesday at 2 p.m. with a summary. It systematically, this is how it's promoted every week, and it's and it meets certain criteria for the type of conversations we're looking to have.
So that would be the answer is yes. That'd be under the natural planning model. But the project would be podcast created and scheduled, something of that nature, right? As the end result is already there, as to what is not true that you want to be true. Well, what's not true is I don't have the podcast created and scheduled yet. Great, that's the project. So it's not a goal. It's not a moving forward. It's how will you know when it's done, and that makes you think differently, which now elevates that productivity we talked about, getting more from the minute, because you thought differently. You have now created more in a shorter period of time. So there's a lot of nuanced principles hidden in the GTD methodology, which David didn't make up. He sort of uncovered and put it together. But there's a lot of how our brain works most efficiently and effectively. And so, you know, I bring it up, and people should, and I'm a big fan of saying, hey, you know, this is how I do it. Go study it, do whatever you can. But all of my world is somehow interrelated with that methodology.
I'm gonna go read that book.
It's you will find it really interesting. I would read, if I was you, by the way, I would now read Ted. I would read Ready for Anything. It's David's favorite book and mine. And Mike, I would read Getting Things Done and then read Ready for Anything. It's a short little book. It's 52 essays.
Okay.
But it describes the principles that really drive. He's got two horizons. We can talk about GTD. But and so when you talk, Ted, about how do you know you're making progress, the truth of the matter is that if you have and let's put GTD aside for a second, if you have well-formed outcomes, goals, and you know where you're headed, and you've got a pretty good set of what the things have to get done to move in that direction, the feedback is you can see you're moving in that direction by checking off the things that are needing to be done. So the feedback I get every day, like we have, I think we bought 70 properties right now. And so we're building a little kind of mini real estate empire, because I think there's a big depression coming in 2030, by the way. We can talk about that at some other point. In fact, I know it's coming, and I'm not the guy that said it. Ray Dalio's talked about it, ITR's talked about it, Tudor Jones talked about it. So we're building sort of mini empire. So there's a ton of stuff we have to do right now that's kind of grunt work, right? We've got employees and stuff kind of moving in that direction, and that's not pleasant work, but I know we're getting it done because I can see the pieces moving. And I can see the puzzle coming together. But if I don't have well-formed outcomes, it's for naught.
I love that. Mike, you had a question where you wanted to go deeper. I wanted to make sure you got that in.
It's so off. It's so off in another direction at this point.
Do it. I love that.
Okay. Yeah. So earlier we were talking about, you know, being a generalist, and one of the things I've noticed, and coming from a background that's very scientific, you know, I was in school and was helping in the lab and doing all the science stuff. And I look at the medical model, and I look at Western medicine, and it seems like any attempt to make it better almost makes it worse in a way. One of the thoughts I've had and I've been playing around with is science is very isolation oriented. It's like we got to reduce the variables and we got to study this thing. And so that's resulted in modern medicine being very isolation oriented. And so you were talking about the specialists who they know a lot about this one thing, but you ask them something that's adjacent, but seems like it should be connected, but they have no idea about it. And I've been playing around with is the scientific model as being incomplete, and my willingness to accept that it's incomplete allows me to zoom out and be able to connect and integrate, because you've probably heard of, like, if you want to improve at something, you isolate, integrate, and then you get the chance to improvise, the 3 I's. And so I see science as this like very good isolating thing. And so I see it in psychology, I see it in physiology, and all these things. And so you have people that are so specialized who seem so smart, but are incapable of the integration. And it's not the fault of an individual, but the system itself. And so, yeah, just curious, do you have any comments on that?
No, I think the myopic view of anything is both positive and negative, right? Because myopia is when you just kind of you zone in on something specific, right? So you could become an expert in basket weaving underwater, and that's all you know how to do, and you're just the world's best at it, but it may not be useful. Then you could become the world's best sushi chef, and that's really useful, right? So myopic is, again, content and context related. And I think there are people, Elliot Jacques wrote a book called The Requisite Society. And in that book, he described the world as a pyramid. And he said that we should have the world as a pyramid in the sense that those at the very top should have a longer horizon. They should be able to see further out than anybody else. And then how far they can see determines of where they go in the pyramid. And it's independent of IQ. Leaders have a long-term vision. Technicians tend to have a short-term vision. If you're a cancer research scientist, you can't have a long-term vision. Every day you got to solve the same problem every day, right? So you have to have your vision is 1 or 2 days out. Like, that's it, right? For a leader, he's got to see, or she's got to see 5, 10, 15, 20 years out. So he thinks we should be described this way. I think science, which of course is being able to be able to replicate a process or an outcome, right? It has its place, but you don't want to put it at the top of the pyramid. You want to put it in its appropriate location. So, we got into this huge trouble with the lipid hypothesis model that, cholesterol causes cancer. I mean, it causes heart disease. We know that to be not only false, but actually irrelevant. Only 7% of the plaque is cholesterol. Your body makes cholesterol, right? And so triglycerides that are high are an indication of metabolically unhealthy. So, but yet Ansel Keys in the 1950s, and Eisen having a heart attack and whatever, it made it myopic. And of course, the profit came from the statins and what have you. And so they lost track of what's happening. But you do need people to be myopically centered. And your audience, if they are at the bottom of the pyramid, they're not entrepreneurs. Entrepreneur has to be somewhere higher up on that pyramid. But the entrepreneur still needs the technician, other folks to be able to help him or her achieve their outcome. This is why, when we say that we charge $150,000, it's not because we want to be expensive. It's that you have to be able to afford me, because if you can't afford me, you're not my client. You're not anywhere in that pyramid, right? You think you are, that's cool, and you might get there. Like, I'm rooting for you, but really you're probably somewhere, in the middle that should be an employee, or you're just a solopreneur, and whatever have you, or your mindset isn't there. So it's unfortunate what you're saying to be true, Mike, in the sense that, the more we study things, the more we want to get myopic, because we want to split that out even more further. But it does take those of us to look outside and go, well, how does it associate? I have a client who's in financial trouble with a bunch of companies. We had a meeting, and between the bankruptcy attorney, whatever have you, and the attorney knows what he knows, my client knows what he knows, and I want to know is, paint the picture for me of all that each of you know. I want to know what you guys know, and I can see it. Then I start to make connections called associative thinking. Most people think sequentially, A, B, C, D, right? And that's normal. It's fine. Bum, 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 bum. I tend to want to be sequential and associative. How do these things relate that they don't see it together? So I came up with a strategy that was unlike anything they have done or seen before, because that was one of my gifts, right? Come up with a strategy. But we still need the attorney to do his thing. We still need the business owner to do his thing. They just now have a different strategy. So I wouldn't think of it as a dismayed response, but rather it's just reality, right? It just sort of is what it is. And the question becomes not what should it be, but where is that useful and where is it not useful? I think the world, most of our life is like, hey, where is that useful? Where is that not useful? Like that, that's what happens.
Right.
Somebody,
I love the pyramid analogy that really paints a picture of like, okay, we're not saying that there's anything wrong with it, but where we may be going, maybe where we're lacking is putting it in its place and recognizing there's probably somebody else who is a generalist who sees all of this and can paint the picture of like how it's actually the utility of it. Whereas I think a lot of time, and I've been mulling this over because over the last however many years, there's been this science put on a pedestal and putting specialists on pedestals when
Well, they're
we
not really
should just be
specialists, are
taking their
they?
data and then asking somebody
Right.
who's actually a
But
generalist.
but they're not specialists. They're those people aren't specialists, right? They're propagandists to a certain extent,
Well,
right?
well, yeah. But in the
Right.
minds of an individual,
Sure.
I'm talking
Sure.
about
They're supposed to be seen as the expert.
yeah, the culture at
Yeah.
large is going, I need to talk to the specialist and they're going to have all the answers.
You know, Ray Dalio coined the word, taught me to triangulate. You know, get three different opinions for the same thing. And then you decide what you hold to be true, right? He's just getting a sense of reality rather than just going, oh, I saw it to that guy and that's what the guy said. You should triangulate, get three opinions, and then go, okay, well, now I'm going to make up my mind as to what decision I want to make. That's significantly more important. There's a great scene, you know, Steve Jobs, we've all read his biography, I'm sure. You know, we saw him one time. We were invited to the premiere of one of the Pirates of the Caribbean at Disneyland. He was there with his son, and I took my kids, my boys. And he was a total asshole, right? Known for just being a total dick. And we just, you know, he self-admitted, right? But he was brilliant at a bunch of things. There's a movie where it's about his life in a day. I forgot what it was. I forgot who said it, but Seth Rogen played not Paul Allen. That's Microsoft. Anyway, he played the guy that Steve started the company with. Thank you, Steve Wozniak. Correct. So he played Steve Wozniak, and they're having an argument, and they're at this stage where there's an orchestra, or you know, like a little component, and he goes, you don't make any. Steve Wozniak says to Steve Jobs, you don't make anything. Why are you the guy? But he's basically saying you don't do anything. Why are you important? And he says, Steve Jobs says to Steve Wozniak, you know what? You're great. You're like the best clarinet player or whatever player I've got. You sit right here, front row, and you play that instrument better than anybody else. But I play the orchestra. And that's true leadership and entrepreneurship. They don't play the music instrument. They may not be the best at what they do, but they play the orchestra. That's high level achievement and accomplishment, right? They're not the doers. They are the thinkers, the implementers, the leaders, the visionaries, whatever you want to call it. And a lot of times when we have individuals that come to us who are already high income earners, guess what they've done? They've dipped down into an area that don't belong, where they're unhappy. Our job is to bring them right back up to where they need to be, where they shined. But they see the problem, so they want to come down and fix it because they have that, if it's up to me, you know, it's up to me mentality, right? And we'd have to smack out and go, no, that's not. You're putting your eyes on the board, not out there. So a lot of the work also comes into just getting them back up to whatever level they are in that pyramid. And so, you know, and if ever you feel, check this out, here's a tool for you. If ever you guys ever feel out of sorts, like you just, you don't feel right, like you're upset or you're annoyed or the day isn't going your way, when you're not at your absolute best, I want you to think of something. Just stop, remember this conversation, stop for a minute and see yourself, disassociate, see yourself in the future, achieving something that's going to make you happy. And your state will change like this. Because what we're doing is you have an unconscious image of all the problems that you're going through in your life. And most of us don't like looking in the rearview mirror with our lives. The minute you look at something forward, you get excited. Give you what I do. So when I have to do work that I don't really love, and it happens, you know, whatever, deal with whatever, especially emails. I don't like emails. And I'm in there, fuck, you know, I'm doing my thing, right? Whatever have you. I immediately think about, man, I can't wait to have dinner with my wife and go upstairs and chill out and watch a little TV show or a movie. And that instantly gets me excited. I'm like, all right, let's get these things done. And I get super excited to get that work done because I created an image of something to look forward to after this. That's the way the brain really supposed to work. So whenever you're, it's because you're engaging with the problems and you're seeing the icky stuff. Just change the mindset by saying, and it's a quick, super easy temporary fix. Just think of something you like. Can't wait to play with my daughter. Can't wait to cuddle with my wife. Can't wait to go on this trip tomorrow. And try to make it as immediate as you can. Oh, tonight I'm having steak. I love steak. Can't wait to have steak. Whatever you can get that's immediately right after this moment, and your attitude will just, your whole body will just resonate with energy and excitement. And now you can go through that process that you didn't like and have to wait.
Yeah, that really speaks to me. I've noticed like a difference between myself and others, and certain clients and people I've worked with over the years. And I've always told people, like, I don't think about the past that much. Like I'm looking forward a lot. There's a lot of forward looking, and that feels like it's pulling me forward. Whereas I notice a lot of people who get stuck are mulling over whatever's happening, whatever it is they don't want to do, or they're dissatisfied with something in the past, and they spend a lot of their attention is there, and their attention isn't actually pulling them.
Well, I'll share with you why that is. So think about something in the past, both of you. Think about something that happened in the past, a couple of years ago, whatever. Where in your mind's eye do you hold it? Where is it? Point to it.
Where in my mind's eye?
Yeah. Is it behind you? Is it up there? Is it over there? Like where, like when you think about it, where is it? For you, it's right there. Okay. What about for you?
It's back there.
Yeah. So timeline for most people, it run in two components. One is like yours, Mike, which is perfect, right? Present and past is behind you. And for most of us, it runs like this: past on the left and future on the right. So for you, Ted, past, you're always looking at the past and the future. You can see both. For Mike, Mike has to go. He's got to. So for him, the past is literally the past. Like it is not present for him at all. And some people have the timeline like that. Others have
Makes
timeline
me
like
good at holding secrets.
it makes you great at a lot of things.
I almost forget. Someone's like,
Right.
"Did you hear it?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I did hear that."
You can get over things pretty easily because they are behind you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see them anymore. But
Can
you
you
also
train
forget.
that? Can you train
Absolutely. You
somebody
can
to?
move it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, I think you
Yeah,
can.
you can move it.
I mean, I've come to the conclusion you can train anything.
Pretty much. Pretty
You
much.
know.
And for Ted, you remember things well because you have the past right there, you're the present over there, but you're like, oh damn, so they're both good and bad, right? Both good and bad. Because some bad,
Rumination.
shit, yep, no, don't want to do that again. Exactly.
Like
It's
I
past
notice
and present.
rumination if you see the past too often.
Yeah. Well, you're looking at it like this, right? So we can always create different timelines and put different things or change what you see in time. There's a lot of timeline work you can do. But the reason, Mike, for you that it's just easy is because your timeline really is back there and then the forward. And for Ted, not so easy because his is past. I'm like you, Ted. My past is here and my future is here. So I'm like, I see it like this, just the same. And it's about 50-50 on people. My wife's back there. She's like, man, what happened? That makes me great at remembering things.
I wonder if it's like because when we were growing up, we were looking at timelines on pieces of paper, like the mental model of the
Could be,
spectrum, right?
could be, could
I
be.
had an
Who
experience
knows?
years ago where I was in a process of like destroying things in my mind, which can be a very dangerous thing. But I like lost I remember one day losing the concept of spectrum,
Oh, interesting.
and realizing that the idea of spectrum is really just a concept. It's not, doesn't actually exist in reality.
That is
And
correct.
so this conversation is reminding me of that and thinking about, well, how do we retrain it? I was like, well, you could in some way find the root of where that concept is living in your mind, wipe it, and then adopt something new, whether
You
it's true or
can.
not, but find utility in it.
You can, although if what I would do for Ted as an example would be I'd have him go to that timeline and pick out the events that he doesn't like. And I would change those events. It's easier than to change the events and to change the timeline direction. So I would change the events, give it a different meaning. So when he sees the timeline, he just sees things that he likes or lessons, but there's no emotional connection to it. There's no big scary tiger. And then I'd make me sure that the future is more compelling than the past. And for you, I would make sure that you'd have the ability to bring stuff from the past in the forward so you could see it and then put it back, right? So you have access to that to teach the lessons. Because people that have timeline back there tend to repeat the same mistake or they tend to be somewhat unempathetic. People that have a timeline here tend to fear the same mistake.
Yeah, I've had to work a lot at becoming more empathetic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think, I mean, and,
Yeah.
again, context, content dependent.
Yeah.
And then, but for Ted and I, we're just really afraid to make the same mistake again. So we're like great at the shit out of ourselves and imagining the worst possible scenario. Oh, shit, yeah. Like, let's make that really big. And, yeah, that's really bad. Let's put it, okay, I can still see it. Okay. Therefore, I don't want to try that because, oh, damn, that kind of stuff, right? So it's a matter of changing the connection to the stuff that holds us back. In the very beginning of the conversation, that anchor, he just goes, ah! If we just make him go. And so it's easier to go than to move the whole timeline back and forth, right? So it's about, hey, let's not change what's there. Let's change how you interact with it.
Mm-hmm.
How do you engage with that? Well, I used to go, oh, Jesus. Now it's going to go, well, whatever. Or he goes, oh man, that was pretty bad, but I remember the great lesson, and now I'm going to put that in my future. Yeah, I'm going to make that more compelling because I'm going to not do that. I'm going to do this instead. So you can still change it. That's why these little nooks and cranny make the big difference in how we perceive. You know, it's all about living a happy life, right? Healthy, happy. Good husbands, good wives, good fathers, good sons, good whatever. Make money, whatever have you. And part of that is how are we inside of ourselves? How are we dealing with the reality? And nobody's ever going to be perfect, right? We're never going to be always high performing state. But are you happy enough in the direction you're moving? And if the answer is yeah, then you're doing a great job. If the answer is no, man, I'm happy where I'm going, but I've got these other things that hold me back. Great, let's get rid of those. You know what I mean? Like, or man, I know I could achieve X, but I'm just not getting there. All right, well, let's get there. Like, that's like I said earlier, nothing motivates more than progress. If you're making progress, your motivation's at a 10. If you're not, motivation's at 0.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have to build in the mechanism where if you're not making progress, you have to make progress in the finding of the making progress,
Mm.
right? Like I'm not making progress, but I'm motivated to find the way to make progress. So I'm making progress in finding what's going to give me progress in its components. So
Mm-hmm.
you kind of have to, you sort of cheat, overlay it by being progress in the making progress to find the thing that makes you progress.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're motivated all the time, like literally motivated all the time, which means you have the reason to move forward. Yes, Ted.
I was going to ask something you said about the anchor, going back to the speedboat metaphor that you gave us. No matter how much you throttle up, unless you cut ties with the anchor, um, there's very little you can do. And I want to speak to the audience, and even selfishly a little bit on myself, is what if the anchor that is holding you back is the comfort you're experiencing, right? And for a lot of folks, that could be the job, it could be the consistent income, the benefits, the comfort, and you're one risk away from the other side of things, yet you're holding on for dear life to that anchor that provides the comfort of your life.
So two things. Number one is, the comfort of your life is not the cause of the comfort. You have to go back to, okay, what's causing that comfort to be comfortable? And then the second piece is you can have it both ways. You can still have the comfort and make progress. You don't need to cut that. That may not be what you need to cut. Let's say, for example, so somebody's got a job and they're like, hey, man, I'm a full-time employee and a part-time entrepreneur. But I believe erroneously that I got to get rid of my job to be a full-time entrepreneur. That may or may not be the case, right? So we're not going to say, yes, you must, or no, you mustn't. We don't know. We don't know. But it doesn't have to be so. You can still maintain your job and be a great entrepreneur until such time that you don't have to be a job anymore. The question is, why aren't you making progress here? And it's not the job, it's something else. You use the job as the symptom, but it's not the source of the problem. Like, oh, it's my job's holding me back. Okay, well, no, it's not. If you didn't have a job, you'd be in the same position. So what's really holding you back? So it's kind of like this is a metaphor about the needle and where the itch is. You think the itch is here, but in reality, it's like you got bit by a mosquito in the forearm and it just somehow is related there. You got to find where's that bite that really came in. And so in your position, I'd say honestly, I mean, on this quick conversation we had, I'd say you're equating the inability to enjoy yourself. In other words, you happen to like joy. You're a pleasure seeker. You're hedonistic. You may not admit it, but you are. You love running. You love all the things you do are making about how they make you feel good. And you even like working hard and struggling to a certain extent. So chances are that you believe that you're going to lose that if you achieve a certain level of success. I'm not going to be as comfortable. I'm not going to be as yummy. I'm not going to be as this, that, and the other. I won't, you see, you're smiling, so it's true, right? I'll lose my faith or this, all lies of the devil if you want to get theological. So that's really what your issue is. You just blame it on something over here. But what you have to do is flip it and go, well, no, it's the opposite. If I make more money, then I'll be more of this. I'll have more of that. I'll be more entitled, more, whatever the case may be for you. And then check with your congruency if it's accurate or not. If your body tells you, no, dumbass, that ain't it, then that's not it. Body goes, yeah, I can see that. I think that's right. Then you know you're onto something. Most of the time, in fact, almost virtually every single time, it's never what they say it is. That's the
Oh man, I'm gonna have to wire you a fee if we keep going.
But you get my point, right?
No, absolutely, and I do receive that because there's the admittance where I can tell oftentimes what I think is the problem rarely is the problem, which is why it's worth working through it. And I'm excited to step back, take the shower, take the nap, and let the archives and the librarian work on pulling up that solution.
Yeah, and I would also, the other piece of advice I give before I let you guys go is think about every behavior has a benefit. We know this, right? We all know this. And so the things that you're doing now, which don't match your outcome, provide a huge value of benefit for you. And that's why you're doing it, right? Now, you may or may not want that benefit. You may or may not like it, but it provides a great value of benefit. Don't dismiss that. Don't throw that away. Don't go bad, bad. No, go good, good, good. How do I have that same resource here help me achieve this? So that you don't lose. We all hate to lose things. We go, you got to lose weight. I don't want to lose weight. No one else to lose money, right? So instead of losing weight, you want to gain a better physique, right? You want to do whatever. So that PMA concept we talked about. So most of us equate where we are now, what you called comfortable. Well, there's a value we're getting from that. We're getting some value here. And we think if we go here, we may lose this value. Well, who the hell wants that? Well, I don't want that. What I want to know is, how do I get the value here to be multiplied here? Right? If I can figure out how this value here gets even better here with other values, now I automatically get propelled forward towards that achievement. There's no longer to be motivated needed. I already am motivated. Either you're motivated or you're not. There's no get motivated, right? But so what you're basically saying is, hey, Marx, my life right now is highly valuable to me. And it could be drug dealers, could be rich, poor. It is because you're living it, right? My life is highly valuable to me right now. But I really want this over here that isn't what I currently have. How do I take the value I'm getting here and make it either equal to or greater along with other perhaps desirable values without losing what I have here? That's what transformed my life when I lost my first fortune, was when I tried to get it back. You have to ask yourself the question, why did you lose it to begin with? Nobody asked that question. That's the $20 million question. I was fucking miserable, right? I was unhappy. And so so when I tried for 2 years to get it back, my body's like, are you out of your mind? Why would you want that? All these terrible things I have. No, like you could say you want it, but we're not going to, subconsciously, we're not going to let you get there. So then when I go, okay, well, hold on a second, time out. Then let's flip that. What do I really want? Why I want this, and this. Okay, great. If I want that, how do I get that to be attached to that? Oh, that's easy. Okay, great. Boom. And then you just, in like 3.5 years, like that, propelled, right? Mm-hmm. But wanting the same thing that was causing me discomfort is not going to motivate me. So losing what's causing you comfort is not going to motivate you either. Like, I don't have a job, right? I get up every morning, I do whatever I want to do. I get up, I have a little routine, my little PRI routine, right? I do the ice bath. My wife makes bacon and eggs. I make the coffee. I sit and I read. I have, I love my life. I love my life. And so if you'd say, hey, Marx, go do this, get your ass in the car, drive to a job from 9 to 5. That job better be so enticing that I want to be there so badly. If it's not, you can pay me whatever you want. I'll say, I'll do it. Week 2, I'm out, guys. I can't do it, right? Because I lost the value I get from having what I have now. So it has to provide either equal to or better value. Now, if you ask me to do something with a historical figure that I find really interesting, I'll work 20 hours a day just to be part of that history, right? Or part of that individual's lives, right? Or if it's compelling enough, I will quickly shift because there's more value for me. But unless that value of what I'm getting fed today is greater than what I currently have, it doesn't matter how I set the goals. So the value you have right now, Ted, is greater than the value you think you're going to get with your goals. All you have to do is get the same value from achieving the goals or more value from achieving the goals. If you do that, then it becomes natural. If you don't, you'll never achieve it.
Amen. Mike, closing thoughts?
Oh man, yeah, what a fire hose! And
Sorry.
no, it's a great fire hose because I'm gonna have to go back and watch this. So I'm gonna read the notes, sift through the transcripts, and I really appreciate the wisdom you've brought here, and I desire to have a continued conversation with you. There's,
Anytime, my friend. I'm here anytime.
I can tell that we've scratched just the surface of things, and so
Probably.
I think yeah, you dropped a lot of really great stuff there in the beginning, and you set a lot of context about to where we could have like a better conversation that's more practical. So I really appreciate you taking the time and educating us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Marx Acosta-Rubio, double your income, double your time off. We appreciate the time today, brother. Thanks again.
I thank you guys. Appreciate the time.